I'm Todd Bookspan, and welcome to your neighborhood real estate show. The hyperlocal real estate show where real estate professionals talk about the neighborhood you live in or the neighborhood you want to live in. This episode is brought to you by homebuyeruniversity.net, your free comprehensive guide to buying or refinancing your home. Click over to homebuyeruniversity.net to get started online today. Hey everyone, I'm Todd Bookspan, and welcome to another episode of your neighborhood real estate show, where I'm super excited to be joined with my friend Matt Long with the Second Mile Group, and you are now at Home-Centric Real Estate.
Yes, sir.
Or Home-Centric Realty. Home-Centric what?
Home-Centric Realty LLC, I think, is the official.
There we go. Awesome. I love that. And, you know, it's one of the things I've always loved is the Second Mile Group. So you got to talk about that for, I think people dig that. How did you come up with that name?
So when we were naming the team, I didn't want it to be like the Matt Long Group or the Josh Underwood Group or something like that. I wanted to be creative about it, but I wanted it to be applicable to my life and to our lives and what we're doing. So I actually attended a church for a while that was called the Second Mile. And I loved that name. And I went up to Pastor. I'm like, hey, where'd you come up with this name, the Second Mile? And it's this concept of if someone asks you to go 1 mile with them, go 2. So I've kind of built my life on doing extra for people. So it just fit in with that. And then also Chick-fil-A uses that verbiage in their training.
Really?
So if you're going to emulate somebody's systems, you probably want to emulate Chick-fil-A's.
Yep. In fact, I did a mortgage webinar today, and someone said their boss says, did you provide a Chick-fil-A or a KFC experience?
Oh, nice.
I was like, all right.
Yeah.
That was awesome. I thought that was a good piece. So I love hearing that, because I think it's just such a cool story, because I think it's one thing to talk the talk. I think it's something different to walk the walk. And I know you do.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right. So real estate, like, how did you fall into this business? Like, did you say, hey, I'm going to be a realtor when I grow up, or was it something different?
No, that's a great way to ask it. How did I fall into it? Because that's kind of how it went. I was working in a bike shop. We know each other from mountain biking way back in the day. And I was working in the bike shop. I was engaged. It was time to make more money. How do I do that? I wanted to be a firefighter. Long story short, that was just not happening. So my now ex-wife, fiance at the time, said, hey, you should get into real estate. She was into real estate. It's easy to get your license. You can do it part-time, all these things that you hear about real estate. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. So I got my license. That was March 2005, which, as you know, was a very busy time.
Yes, it was.
And I was just thrown to the wolves. Within 6 months, I'd done 11 deals. This is the greatest business of all time. I haven't been doing this forever. And then June 06 hit, which you know what happened in June of 06.
Oh, yeah.
And it was the opposite. So that was a long answer, but literally I just fell into it because it was supposed to be a temporary between what I was doing that I loved until I found what I was going to do that I loved. And as it turns out, I loved real estate.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's sad that no one can make money in the bike business.
Yeah.
You know,
some people can, but there's like 2 or 3 out of hundreds of thousands.
Yep. I enjoyed the 8 of the 10 years I owned bicycle stores.
Yeah.
You know, it was fun, but not as lucrative as the real estate world. That's for sure.
Yeah. My old boss said the best way to make $1 million in the bike industry is start with 2.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, and I love the fact that you say you're super passionate about real estate, because obviously you hit in 06 and through the financial crisis. It was a hard time to be a real estate agent, but obviously you persevered through that. So, you know, I mean, what do you feel was the differentiator for you to make it happen?
I think a lot of it was I didn't have a choice. There was no plan B. I had a baby at that point in time, owned a house, had all these extra financial responsibilities I hadn't had. And the things that I could have done if I didn't do real estate weren't going to cut it.
Yeah.
So it just had to work. And I was very fortunate in the people I met through that process of it had to work. I was introduced to Brian Buffini and his coaching systems very early on in my career, which really kind of cemented what is still true about me as I work by referral. People who already know me, trust me, like me, they're going to call me with their friends, and then that's where all of my business comes from. So it cemented that, and yeah.
Well, I love that, because we will talk about some areas in town in a few minutes. But when I said to you, hey, where do you love to sell? And you say, well, I have to sell all over because I work by referral, and people are referred to me who want to live all over.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's a great opportunity to, to know a lot about places that other people don't know about.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So you talked about the market was crazy back when you got into business, and you said you were busy. So the last couple of years, because of COVID, it's been a different market, and we've kind of shifted to a market now. So how do you describe the market to someone who asks, how's the market?
The market right now today? Honestly, my first answer to how's the market is that's a good question, because that is a good question. How is the market right now? It's transitioning. We're probably similar in that we look at numbers a lot. I'm looking at the Cromford report like every other day, if not every day. So I'm in tune to those numbers, but I also am in tune to humanity enough to know that numbers don't necessarily translate to what's the market really doing.
Oh, I love that.
Because at the end of the day, we're all working with people who have emotions and their own ideas, and we're hopefully guiding them in the right direction. But so it's an interesting question to answer. Ultimately, the best answer I have for somebody is, if it's time for you to move, it's the right time to move. And that was true in 2006 and 2007 is when I started using that. Hey, there's not many people are moving, but if you live an hour away from home, you should probably move. So
I'm writing that down.
You're writing that down? Nice.
Yeah. Well, and I think, you mentioned the Cromford report. So if someone listening doesn't know who that is, I mean, really, sure. Michael Orr is the best person who aggregates data specifically for Maricopa County. And so it's really the go-to source for real estate agents who I think care about the data at a high level, because you can certainly get data from other places, but I feel like that's the best data that's out there.
For sure. And for agents who are listening to this, you can get access to that for free from lenders and title companies who have classes, but it's like $400 a year. And you can go in before a listing presentation and you can pull the numbers for that zip code, and you can become the area expert in a matter of 10 minutes once you know how to use that program. So
we've got
everybody sign up and get it.
We've got Tina Tambor coming on from the Cromford report, coming on as a guest in the future. So so that'll be great. So I'll be able to hear
they're awesome
from her. And so, but I love that you're up to date on all that. And I think that's the right advice to give people, right? If they've got to move, then it's the right time to
at the end of the day, I mean, we could talk about those numbers a bunch if you want, but at the end of the day, the right time is the right time.
Well, give me a statistic right now that you either were surprised about or that you're talking about a lot.
I'm really surprised at how quickly we went from, to use Tina's words, insanity in the market to what really is right now, as we're recording this, dead even market.
Yeah.
No one has any leverage over anyone else right now, buyer or seller. Again, by the numbers. In reality, buyers have a lot of leverage over a seller when you're actually making an offer. But by the numbers, we're pretty much a dead even market. And to think that went from April, the highest craziness, sellers had all the control we've ever had in Phoenix, to 6 months later, it's normal, quote unquote normal. To me, that's the biggest surprise.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think it's just interesting because the average person who maybe listens to the news or reads the news doesn't really know what to think, right? So, what I love is you're looking at local Arizona specific down to the zip code data, where nationally you're hearing what's going on in Ohio and Kentucky and California and places that are way different than here.
Yeah. And that's another way I use the Cromford report that they might frown upon, but I use it to show, like, here's a zip code you're looking in, what's happening. Here's a zip code 20 miles away, what's happening. It's completely different. So to rely on a headline from CNN that's national and try to apply that to your zip code, no, don't do that. It's not going to be correct.
Well, and I see that even in like the neighborhood I live in. I mean, there's like 4 quadrants in this, I don't know if it's a square mile, called a square mile, and the quadrant I live in, because it's got different trees that drive down the street, and there's trees that go over there. The last 3 houses that went on the market in the last 60 days all sold the first weekend.
Oh, wow.
And you go to any other quadrant and the houses are still sitting there. They're not moving the same. And so it's, different, slightly different price points, which sounds really weird, but I think it's just, I think it's a look of the street that people are choosing. And so I think it's, I like your example better because that's more normal, right? It could be 20 miles away. That's going to be, that's going to be different. So when you've got a buyer and you said, hey, maybe the buyer has an advantage. So how are you talking to buyers? How are you coaching buyers through the process?
So when I get a new call from someone who referred them to me, they want to buy a home here, I talk a little bit about how the market was, because odds are that's the information they still have.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about, if you told me 6 months ago, we'd be having a very different conversation than we are now. But my basic setup now with a buyer is congratulations, you have selection. In April, we had 6,000 homes on the market. We should have 24,000. Today we have 19,000. So we don't have as many as we should, but we have 4 times what we had 6 months ago. So you're actually going to be able to pick a house you actually want to live in instead of the one you can get accepted, the contract accepted for.
That's huge, right?
So immediately they're just like, cool, I'm stoked about this process. And then we kind of bring in, oh, but by the way, to pay for that, your interest rate's a little higher. So, we start with the benefits of what's happened.
Get them all excited.
And then we're
crash them down, talk about where interest rates are going.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
I don't control the rates. You don't control the rates. They are what they are. And yeah, you're not going to be able to buy as much home as you could have in April, but you don't need to spend as much for the same home either.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's the I don't know who coined it, because I don't really necessarily like it, but it's the date the rate, marry the home, right?
I'm with you. It's great,
we're hearing it all the time.
I love.
Yeah, I don't necessarily love it, but rates go in cycles, and so most people believe that rates will be lower in the future, and buy now while you can buy and have selection. So I like that part. What about so you said that they have an advantage. So are you seeing, is it all price drops, or is it people getting seller credits towards closing costs and buying the interest rates lower, or a combination of both?
Yeah, I'm seeing all 3 of those.
Okay.
And when I'm talking to my buyers, the phrase I use is, it depends on how you look at money. Mm-hmm. I have one client who will never, ever have his seller pay his closing costs or anything, because he looks at it as, I'm financing those over the next 30 years. Mm-hmm. I have other clients who won't buy unless the seller will pay their costs, because they can keep more money in their pocket. So it's just all how you look at money. So I have that conversation with the buyer. Which of those 2 do you like better? Do you want to have 10 grand in your pocket still and your payments a little higher? Or do you want to have those costs paid, or pay those costs on your own and your payments a little lower?
I love it.
So it's more of a guiding them through how they think instead of telling them how they should think about it. My personal opinion on it is still dependent on who they are. First time buyer who's barely got their down payment.
I was like, wait, he's going to give me an opinion. Oh, no, I like it. It all depends on the person, which I know about you. So I love it.
Yeah. If I'm talking to someone who's never bought a home before, and for a year and a half, they've got 10 grand as a down payment. Well, they're obviously not going to pay their own closing costs. They're not going to buy their rate down. So the seller needs to do that for them. If I'm talking to someone, this is their 8th home and they're made out of money, is one of my phrases, then
they probably don't need
pay your own stuff.
Yeah, I say it's cash flow versus cash in the bank. And I said, what's going to help you sleep better at night, right? Me personally, I sleep better with cash in the bank. So I have, even though I bought multiple homes, all my last homes that I can remember, I've gotten seller to pay closing costs.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to pay it. I'd rather keep my cash in the bank, and I'm okay with a little bit worse cash flow. But I said, hey, if you cash flow, like some people are so focused, I got to have a certain payment, and they could care less what they have in the bank. And I wouldn't sleep well that way, and they would. And that's a great way to make a decision as well. So it's exactly what you said, just put a little bit different way.
Cool.
So great minds think alike. Exactly. Pat ourselves on the back. All right. So then now let's flip it, and let's look at it from the seller's perspective. Because obviously a seller before was like, woohoo, 25 offers in 15 minutes. And now not quite the same.
Definitely not. And we're 6 months into that. You and I look at it as 6 months into that, but it's amazing how many sellers haven't got that memo yet. And they're like, well, the selling is going to be the easy part, right? And so you have to rewind and back that up. And that same information, we had 6,000 homes. Now we have 19,000. We should have 24,000. That same information tells a seller who's listening, okay, this isn't going to be as easy as it was.
Listen.
Right. So getting reality into the psyche of those sellers isn't always easy. And sometimes it takes overpricing a home, and 2 weeks later we get it to where it needs to be. And that's a decision for each agent to make of if they want to do that or not. I obviously would. But ideally, you can work through that process enough to where they're seeing what it is. And to put more feet on that, as soon as I talk to a seller who's thinking about selling, sometimes I get a call and we're on the market the next day. sometimes it's, hey, we're just thinking about it. What are we going to do? So that person immediately gets put on a home search through MLS as if they were a buyer of the home they currently own.
Oh, that's a great idea.
So now they're getting emails 5-10 times a day of price reductions of homes that were overpriced and aren't on the market. And then that week goes by and they're like, oh, you weren't just telling me that to get me to lower my price and sell it quicker. You're actually guiding me down the road of how to actually sell my home in this market.
Showing them the data.
Right. And let it speak for itself. And that's another thing that I learned in 06 and 07 was using that to get sellers to then call me and be like, hey, it looks like we're overpriced. You think we should lower it a little?
It's a lot easier conversation than when you're calling them.
Far better. Smarter, not harder. Easier is generally better.
Yeah.
So.
Well, but I think it's brilliant. And I've never heard anyone say that. I tell buyers all the time, like they'd say, oh, I'm going to buy next year. I say, well, great. What I would do is get on a search now, with an agent that's going to give you actual MLS data. And then you can watch what's going on in the market, because at some point, what's going to happen is the hedge funds are going to start buying again and investors are going to start buying. And all of a sudden you're going to see that there's less homes available. And then probably you're at the point where you should stop waiting, for whatever you think is going to happen, because my crystal ball is still a little foggy on that. Right. And so I think it's funny. I've been coaching people on the opposite, but the way that you're talking for sellers is that's huge.
Yeah. It's helpful. And some people hear that and they're like, okay, I don't need to sell. I guess I won't.
Yeah.
And then there's people who have to move. There's always people who have to move, and it goes back to what we're talking about at the start, that the right time is the right time.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what people forget. People forget that, in any market, regardless of what interest rates are, regardless of what inventory is, that there's people who have to move, right? Job changed, they're moving somewhere else, family situation changed, and there's reasons you have to do what you have to do.
Especially if you're moving within the same market. Like if you're staying in Phoenix and you're just moving into a bigger, smaller, same house in a different place, really the market really doesn't matter. The only thing the market conditions change is the number of zeros behind the sale. If it's a seller's market, you're screaming for joy when you sold and you're in the trenches when you're buying. And if it's the reverse, you're the opposite. So if you're staying in the same market, I don't really care what the market conditions are.
Either you're going to overpay and you're going to sell for over, or you're going to maybe have a little negotiating power, which means you're going to have to give a little on the sales side. So it all washes out in the end.
And that's another thing, going back to what do I talk to my sellers, is I say, look, you're going to pay closing costs for your buyer, but you're also going to get your closing costs paid.
Yeah.
So it's all the same.
It's great. Yeah. Just great advice. So again, you said I sell everywhere, and I'm like, all right, let's pin it down. Then we started in the Southeast Valley. So we'll talk about that in a minute, but then all of a sudden you're like, well, wait a second, but I really love this place called Legend Trails. And I'm like, I don't know every community in town, but I've never heard of Legend Trails. And when you started describing to me Legend Trails, I thought this place sounds super cool. So first off, you fly into Sky Harbor Airport in the middle of Phoenix. Where's Legend Trails?
So from Sky Harbor, it's about a 30-minute drive, essentially north of Sky Harbor. So you'd go up Pima almost till it becomes Cave Creek. So it's still in Scottsdale, but it's right on the border there. And one of the things I love about it is you pull off of Pima and you're on this divided road, 2 lanes each direction. And it's just this beautiful, pristine desert with big boulders, beautiful saguaros. I've been living in Phoenix since I was 2. This is like home to me. I love it. And that is just a super pristine part of it. It's like my favorite entry, if you will, to the community.
It sounds to me like, you're working, you're in the rat race, you fight in traffic, and then you take that right turn, and all of a sudden it gives you, okay, I can unplug and I can actually go home and enjoy myself.
For sure. Yeah. By the time you pull in, and they've got a golf course that's beautiful. I'm not sure who designed it. Someone famous designed it. I'm not a golfer, so I don't really.
Me neither. So let's just pretend it's got spots of grass and a few of those little sand trappy things, and maybe a range you can hit some balls on.
Yeah, and a lot of the homes are obviously on the golf course. It's got several holes that run east-west, so you can have a home that's north-south facing and be on a golf course, which is kind of rare.
Yeah, because
they like golf holes to not be blinded by the sun, so they typically run north-south. So that's kind of a cool thing.
I didn't know that either. So.
It's got. I learned that while showing homes in Legend Trail.
There you go.
There you have it. My client taught me that, and there's a section that's gated. There's a section that's not gated. There's condos that are attached. There's multi-million-dollar homes that can see up to the Bradshaws that get snow every year. So it's really cool.
Yeah, and that's, in price range, right? So obviously multi-million is the top. What's
Yeah.
like the low end? Like what's a condo or a smaller
a condo
home
in there
cost?
right now, it's probably in the 450 to 5. Probably the least expensive detached would be in the 7s. Something on the course is going to be pretty close to $1 million right now.
Yeah, well, you got to pay for that.
Yeah.
That beautiful ability to have someone hit a golf ball through your window. Or not, I don't know. I had friends who live on a golf course. They had like some special windows. They didn't have that problem.
Oh yeah,
it'd be like bonk, and
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, so just
I'll add that in my repertoire.
exactly. Well, now I know there's no north south. I'm going to start golfing someday, so that's good to know as well. And so, I love that idea just because it's something kind of different. And then we also talked about the Southeast Valley, and Southeast Valley, obviously is southeast of the airport. Like,
Yeah.
What would you say? What do you tell people? 20, 30 minutes?
Yeah, same thing.
Right.
20,
Freeways
30
run out
minutes.
there now.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I talk to people who are from out of state by, this is a sidebar to your question, is how good our freeway system really is. And once you're on a freeway, you're no more than 40 minutes away from somewhere you would really need to go,
Yeah.
regardless of where you live. The biggest question is how far off of the freeway is my house? So I talk to out-of-state people about, I'd be focused on, are you 5 minutes from a freeway or are you 20? Because that's really going to be the impact to your commute. So East Valley, now we've got the Loop 202 out there. My house is 5 minutes from a freeway.
Probably important as
Most
a
of them
realtor sells all over the valley.
Yeah. Yeah. And my wife, when we were looking out there, she's like, but you drive all over the place. We can't live on one edge. I'm like, well, I drive all over the place. Wherever I live, I'm driving a bunch.
Yeah.
So I'm at like 26,000 miles a year right now on my car. So
Nice.
yeah, is what it is.
Life of a real estate agent.
Yeah. Yeah. But I love it out there. There is an airport out there, Mesa Gateway Airport. It used to be a military base. As a kid, I'd go watch the military jets take off and stuff. Eastmark is out there. They're on like year 15 of a 20-year build out of Eastmark. Cadence has an awesome community center where they've got 2 like water slides, like Gulfland style water slides in the community. They've got a park that's a pool that's like a no kid zone, so the adults can just chill.
So that's like East Mesa, or am I wrong about the area?
East Mesa. It's kind of like on the Mesa Queen Creek border, like
Okay.
Ellsworth Road and Ray.
So really, it depends on what amenity someone wants, where you
Mhm.
recommend they live. And then I love the analogy of how far off the freeway do you want to be? Because every once in a while I do hear that. I've got a team member and he's like, well, it's going to take me 30 minutes to get to the freeway. And then I have to
Right.
drive to get there. And I just never necessarily think about that because I've always lived probably like you about 5 minutes from the freeway.
Yeah. And with COVID, another really key question is, do you work from home? That used to be so rare. Now it's a lot more common.
Yeah.
And so where you live can really open up.
I think that'll be kind of interesting. And, just a total not random question is, how do you feel like, I feel like the last 2 years, I've had so many people who've moved here from colder places, Washington, Chicago, just all over, to have moved to Arizona who can work remote. Are you still seeing clients that want to move here just because it's Arizona and they can work remote? Is that still a trend you're seeing?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely not as much. I don't know the numbers, but we had to have been pretty high up on the list of that COVID spurred migration, whatever the right name for that is. We had to be pretty up on a list of where people were coming from. And we have always been a big place where people come from colder climates, more expensive tax-wise climates. That's a big reason I get for people moving here is income tax and all those kind of things. But to me, a bigger question, a different question to that same kind of thought is one of the byproducts of where you living no longer mattering is homes 30 minutes from a freeway were just as expensive as homes closer to a freeway. And so that where a home was dictating how much it cost kind of went out the window. And it was, what does this look like? Does this meet my needs? I'll pay $600 in Queen Creek, even though it would have cost me $600 in Gilbert, as an example. And that transition is going to be pretty big now that people might have to go back to work, or so I feel like the outliers cities are going to take a little bigger hit, and that was gone for a year and now it's back. That's going to be interesting to see how that really plays itself out as people maybe sell who bought in April of this year.
You know, it's interesting you point out, you make that point because, you know, in the old days we called it drive till you qualify, right?
Yeah.
So you would go out where the prices got less expensive. And it's funny you say that because we went to, I forgot what, like the Pottery Barn, some outlet. My wife's like, we got to go. And it was, you know, again, it was way out halfway to California, I joke, but it was, you know, it was way out in the West Valley, right off the freeway.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And there's beautiful shopping center with, you know, all these big box stores in it and lots of brand new homes out there after you passed areas where there weren't as many houses. You know, you're still seeing some of the areas that are transitioning. And I don't even know what town it was in, but you know, what do I do? Of course, I pull up and I look at what property values are, and I was like $500,000-$600,000, and I thought to myself, I was expecting $300,000-$400,000, right. And so that'll be an interesting observation to see how that goes.
Yeah.
All right, so totally non-real estate related. So you're a big Jeep guy still, right? Or no? All right. So where do you hop in your Jeep and go off road?
Yeah. So locally, I go out at a place called Bulldog Canyon.
Okay.
It's like Ellsworth, a couple miles north of McDowell. It's super cool. It's like 5 minutes from the city. You have to get a code to get in there. It's easy to get the code. You just go online.
It's like a secret code.
Wherever.
Like that.
It's
right.
like
who owns the land that you're
It's Forest Service, so it's like BLM or something like that. It's $6 to get the code. You get 6 months worth of codes. And I'll go out there. Sometimes I'll pick my kids up from school, not anymore because they drive, but before they drove, I'd be like, hey girls, we're taking the long way home. And we'd go up to Bulldog and we'd drive through there for an hour and a half. Just again, pristine desert, dirt roads, kind of forget that the world even exists. And as the crow flies, you're 10 miles from city.
Yeah.
So I like that because it's real close. We go to Colorado at least once a year, Durango area of Colorado. Tons of great Jeep stuff up there, mountain bike stuff up there. No one else in my family mountain bikes, so I try not to do it too much when we're on family vacations, but some great Jeep trails up there and passes.
Well, I love that. And I feel like I'd be doing a disservice if I didn't call out the mountain bike part. We sort of mentioned that already, but I mean, the Jeep part's a big part of your community. You do a lot of business within the Jeep community, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, working by referral and working with who I know, it just kind of happens that for a while there, it felt like every house I was selling had to have an RV gate and room for them to park their trailer and hopefully a shop to work on my Jeep. Or if it wasn't that, it was I need to be close to the mountain bike trails. So
I just love that.
Yeah.
I just love that. All right. So any words of wisdom for buyers or sellers that we didn't talk about that we should?
I would say this, the clients I have who tell me it was super stressful or complain the most about the process of buying or selling a home are the ones who aren't listening to the people who do this all the time. So another way to say that would be more common would be, you know, trust your agent.
Yeah.
Like, we're here for a reason. We aren't used car salesmen. We're helping you make a purchase. That's one of the things that makes America what America is the ability to own a home and gain all this equity in your home. And if you're talking to the right agent, we do this 30, 40, 50, 100 times a year. If I wasn't a real estate agent, I'd have done this 4 times in my life. So we have the practice. We know what's going on. The people who trust the system, trust the process, are the ones that at the end are like, that's the most stress-free thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
So trust the process.
I think that's super solid advice. I like how you said it. And it's oftentimes, I think it's the challenge when everyone knows a real estate agent, but not everyone who's a real estate agent is truly qualified and is a professional. And you know, the numbers that you're talking about, to me, that makes someone truly a professional.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, folks. Now you know why I had my friend Matt Long with the Second Mile Group here on the show. What's the best way for people to find you if they want to reach out and connect?
Probably the best way would be to shoot me a text.
Okay.
I don't know if I can throw
your number out there, and I'll make sure we get in the show notes too.
It's 602-284-3553. I'm unfortunately old school, so someone else handles my social media. Don't really have a great website.
That's not old school. Like, that's current. That's future right now.
Okay, maybe.
Let someone else do it.
shows what I know.
Well, you just focus on helping people.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Love that. All right. Thanks again, Matt.
Awesome.
It's a lot of fun.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. This episode is brought to you by homebuyeruniversity.net. your free comprehensive guide to buying or refinancing your home. Click over to homebuyeruniversity.net to get started online today.